Secure some price for Monday, May 12th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the historic Wall Center. And as always, this program a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. We got a big program planned for you. Coming out of a busy weekend in sports. How are you?
I'm good. Good. It seems like a busy spring. It's almost like if the Canucks were in the playoffs. This is my silver lining. If the Canucks were in the playoffs, it would be too busy. This makes it just doable. That's how I'm going to spin this, Matt. I feel pretty busy already.
I don't know about that. There have been a number of sort of late afternoons where I've found myself, taking in the sun as the temperature starts to cool down a little bit, where I've said, boy, wouldn't it be great to have a 7:00 Stanley Cup playoff game featuring the Vancouver.
I'm not a fan of covering the playoffs.
Canucks.
I'm trying here, Matt.
Last year around this time, the market was just crackling with excitement. It was fantastic to have the Stanley Cup playoff back here in Vancouver because, of course, remember the last time they actually qualified for the postseason, it was the Edmonton bubble. So it had been 9 years.
Well, I did think of this, that with the springtime weather we've had, which is pretty damn good up to this point, that there would have been a lot of patio games.
Oh, big time. Big time.
Yeah.
I mean, there would have been a lot of people out there frolicking, beaches, parks, seawalls, what have you.
Yeah.
And then making their way to the nearest patio for the puck drop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
We'll have to settle for.
Instead, we're on a coaching search here, everyone, a coaching hunt.
Watch Sekeres and Price on the patio. It's the same thing. Feels just the same.
Which brings us to our Toyota Pacific Dealers poll question. Can Manny Malhotra win his way into the Canucks head coaching job? You can vote yes. You can vote no. You can vote he's already done it with the Abbey Canucks into round 3 of the AHL playoffs. Do so at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Blake Price, first crack.
I think what's in the bank is in the bank already. I think they're impressed that he's got them this far. I don't think going farther helps his case any. So I'll say no. That's the only answer that fits for my particular reasoning here. I'm not saying that he's not going to be the next head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. I just think it's not getting better from here. They're not going to be like, he got into the third round, that's great. But if he gets into the final, then he's got the job.
You don't think winning a Calder Cup championship, would it change the price of tea here?
I don't think it does.
That's two more series.
Yeah.
That's upsetting the number one team in your division.
And that's lightning in a bottle sort of stuff. I think they're impressed that he's won them some playoff games already. They had as good a regular season. I think they've already impressed him. Or he's already impressed them, pardon me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I don't think there's more to do there. I think anything else past this is just a nicety for the purposes of the Canucks job.
Okay. Is it 2 more series? No, it'd be 3.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is only the middle round.
Right. Because then you'd have to win the conference final and the
final.
And the final. I voted yes. I voted yes because I would like to think that the Canucks are running a meritocracy. I'd also like to think that at some level he gets undeniable. For example, winning the Calder Cup or getting to the Calder Cup. I think there are other organizations that are interested in Manny. And so I think it's a little bit of not wanting to lose a guy that you've put time in, not just this past year with the AHL Canucks, but of course way back when he was working for the Canucks as part of Travis Green's staff. So, look, it does very much seem like the Canucks are going down the road of the less expensive, less brand name candidate around the league. Like, there hasn't been a ton of Peter Laviolette smoke here or others who have been longstanding NHL head coaches. And, of course, a couple of the jobs have already been filled. Mike Sullivan to the Rangers, Joel Quenneville to the Anaheim Ducks. And so if that's the case and you've got somebody under your nose and you know you like a lot of things about him, not to mention you want to protect him from going elsewhere, I think that could well make the decision for them.
Do you think they would actually announce Manny Malhotra as the head coach while a playoff run was still, like, if he
I'm
goes,
less sure of that.
We're still 5 weeks away from the Calder Cup being hosted.
Right. No, but the other thing I think you got to look at here, Blake, is take a look at who's playing for the Abbotsford Canucks, and I think you feel like a good number of these guys could well be Vancouver Canucks next year. Linus Karlsson, Victor Mancini, Max Sasson, Kirill Kudryavtsev, Ty Mueller got a cup of coffee late, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Arturs Šilovs, and of course, there would be some others, I think, that factor there perhaps on a longer timeline for the Canucks, Danila Klimovich being one.
Yeah, it's mildly a part of the equation, I think. I think that they would also view him as a great asset in the AHL next year if he can avoid being scooped up by somebody else as well. So that's also the delicate dance that they have here, is if they could know that they've got Manny in the system still next year and somebody else I think they'd love that, but you've got to defend the asset that you think you have. So it's a bit of a delicate dance here. We'll see. They're going to have to really love the other guy that they have in mind to ignore Manny and risk him being scooped up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a legitimate risk.
Yep.
When you choose the BZ4X from Toyota, Matt, you're going to get a car that can do everything, can park anywhere, can get you up and down in this fabulous province we live in, and do it all without a sip of gas. HOV lane for days, a fully electric vehicle from Toyota that falls in line with the legacy of the original Prius and others. Right now, you can get a $5,000 incentive. You can finance an LE all-wheel drive edition from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Again, it can go anywhere, all-wheel drive. Shop Toyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Go take one for a test drive.
Let's go to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery, TV Tocchet, Seattle Tocchet, ? I've had two people now mention to me they believe the Seattle Kraken have offered their head coaching job to Rick Tocchet. He didn't immediately accept. That could be telling. That could be hammering out contract details. That could be him stalling to see if another team opens up here. And I do think, looking back now, we got our answer on why he stalled with the Vancouver Canucks for as long as he did. He is back, or was back, on the TNT set this past weekend, helping them with their studio coverage of the Stanley Cup playoffs as a panelist, back to kibitzing with Biz, breaking it down alongside Liam and Ace, the former Vancouver Canuck.
Hey, it's Ace.
Looked very comfortable and happy to be there, but of course has stated a desire that he wants to coach again. There's a little part of me that just wonders, is Philly the place and he's using Seattle as leverage? Or is Philly not necessarily as lock stock as some were believing earlier in the season when they moved on John Tortorella? And so Seattle is the fallback plan there. We shall see. One thing we did note from Rick's work on TNT this past weekend, they presented him with a framed photo. You'll remember he was quickly out the door to Vancouver. They did foreshadow it 2.5 years ago when he made the jump at midseason from the TNT set to the Vancouver Canucks. The last broadcast he did, what wound up being the last broadcast he did, they very much knew the cat was out of the bag. At that point, I think we all knew the cat was out of the bag, so they sort of addressed it, not necessarily specifically. So there is a history of this. They presented him with a framed photo of the talent and crew and told him he could return to the show whenever he wanted, which has one commentator wondering, does he have a new coaching job lined up? Time will tell.
Yeah, they could have done the shtick of, hey, we're courting you so you don't become a coach.
Right.
But it was more fait accompli. He's back behind a bench.
Right.
Visit whenever you can.
Right.
Don't know. I don't know if that's just reading into whatever
well,
they were doing or what.
I think it would be entirely appropriate for the executive producer of TNT to say, hey, Rick, we'd love you back, blah, blah, blah. Can you work a couple shifts? Yep, happy to do it on the weekend. By the way, Rick, is this something we can count on going forward? Like, would you be able to help in the next round or the round after that? So I do wonder whether a conversation has been had there. Closer to home, Elliot Friedman saying the Canucks are shortlisting down to 3 or 4 candidates this week, then another round of interviews, the second interviews in person we anticipate here in Vancouver. And everybody expects Manny Malhotra and Marco Sturm, the former Vancouver Canuck, although only for a moment, who is the head coach of the Ontario Reign, the LA Kings farm club. And later in the program, we talked to John Shannon, and John was telling us, I forget if this was on or off hit, that the Kings really like Marco Sturm. And in fact, a couple of years ago, he interviewed for their head coaching position and impressed a lot of people there. As I recall, and it was only a brief interaction, although he was kind of an uber veteran, made the team on a PTO. He's kind of like Manny in terms of he garnered a lot of respect from his teammates.
Oh, he's a veteran player. Sure,
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. He had some struggles scoring goals in the playoffs. We chronicled that last week, which is mildly concerning for a team that's going to need to try to. Now, in the regular season, they were 13th in goals for out of 32 teams in the AHL, so might have just been a bad week for the Ontario Reign that saw them eliminated. But what I think is most notable about all that news coming together is, even if it's 4 guys that get the second interview, you're guaranteeing 50% of the candidates have no NHL head coaching experience. And if it's 3, we'll do the math, we're at 67.
Yeah.
So that is,
I will say this, Blake. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm less
moved by that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Because, of course, if you are going to a guy who does not have NHL head coaching experience, you're probably going to a younger guy. I think the younger coaches are more relatable to players these days. It's a different group of players these days. You are very much managing personalities and feelings much more than you used to in the National Hockey League. I mean, players' feelings used to be completely cavalierly dismissed by NHL coaches.
I generally agree, and I generally would say I don't care.
And as you know, we have some feelers on this team.
My concern is just regarding Operation Save Quinn. And I would worry that Quinn, and again, folks, understand, NHL players always think their team is way better than it is. Quinn Hughes thinks that they're going to be a playoff team next year. He hasn't even met the new guys that they're going to sign yet, and he's already pretty sure of that. And if they bring in, the minute they sign a guy that doesn't have experience versus a guy that does, I wonder if Quinn goes, really? Like, we just need a guy to get us there and operate, be our shepherd through the playoffs. I need somebody who's been there before, right or wrong. Like, again, that could be a completely mistaken view by a veteran like Quinn Hughes. But veterans do often think that way. And if your goal is to keep Quinn happy, keep Quinn here, that would be the angle that I would be mildly concerned about.
Yep, and I get that. I think a personality like Manny Malhotra would, and of course Quinn knows Manny.
He's tough to dislike for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could win him over.
Yeah, that would be the hope.
Yeah. Now, I think the Lawrence Gilman rule applies a little bit here, is that if you're going to hire another first-time head coach over Manny Malhotra, you better know a lot about him because you're darn sure to know more about Manny than you are to be another head coach.
Yeah.
But I think that profile of coach could be sold to Quinn. And I would advise whoever does get the job, first phone call, and in terms of leaning on a player for guidance for just about everything in terms of getting to know that room, system you're going to play and all of that should route through Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
If you're a first-time NHL head coach, I think you've got to show a large degree of deference to the Canucks captain. I think you would with your captain to a degree anyways, but I think it's even more pronounced here in Vancouver because we all know the stakes, and that is keep Quinn happy and hopefully keep Quinn long term.
Yeah, and no one knows what the recipe is there. Like what's going to score points with Quinn Hughes?
Yep.
Outside of as we spitballed last week, hiring his dad would be a help.
Yeah. Now, one other thing on Tocchet, I see Jimmy Murphy in Boston, and Jimmy's covered the Bruins and the hockey for a long time there in Boston. He is saying it would be surprising to see the Bruins meet Tocchet's contract demands. Remember, Tocchet turned down what was reported a $5.5 million deal here. I heard Elliott mention four-ish today, so I don't know if there's backtracking on that reporting or if there's clarity. But Tocchet was making 2.5. Sullivan was the top of the top at 5. You have to think Sullivan has gone beyond that with the Rangers now. Mm-hmm. But, Tocchet turned down some significant bread from the Vancouver Canucks. If Boston is a team that wants to hold the line and doesn't want to get up there in those sorts of coaching salaries, then that could take another potential option off the board for Rick, and maybe that makes it more clear that he's heading to Seattle or more clear that he's heading to Philadelphia.
Given you still have one of the best players in the league in Pasternak, and given you are the Boston Bruins, now are fairly recent Stanley Cup champion and all that, in a lean couple of years ahead for the team. Again, this would be why I wouldn't take the job if I was Rick. But in terms of the offer from the Bruins side of things, having a communicative brand name coach, and I mean brand name just in terms of the name, not so much in the coaching resume. I think I would. If I'm the Bruins, with I think fairly limitless funds, I would offer that job to Rick Tocchet.
Yeah,
if you don't have some wins in your back pocket over the next couple of years, at least you'll have a brand name coach to talk about it. But
and a guy you would think would play well with that market.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I don't know what to make of the Bruins. They, at one point earlier last decade, did a kind of a retool on the fly, and it worked. They were competitive.
Post-Lucic era, basically. Yeah.
They were competitive. Now, they didn't get back to Stanley Cup heights or even Stanley Cup final appearances. The one name, though, that we should talk more and more about is Pavel Zacha.
Yep.
Because if you're looking to fill your top two center role, and look, Zacha isn't perhaps the quintessential guy. He's not higher up the pecking order than some of the other names that we have talked about in the past, but he's a good player.
Potentially better than Pius Suter, though, in that same role.
I think he's a cut above Suter.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily sure he's a cut above some of the other candidates that we have talked about as second-line center.
But here's the thing with him. He's under contract.
That's right.
And you're not paying for 6 years of Pavel Zacha.
Right.
That's the big benefit there.
Right. It was career-high 59 points in 23-24.
Yeah, back-to-back high 50s and then high 40s this year. But you're only paying for 2 more years of him, which is really nice. You're not on the hook. So
at 4.75, which is very digestible, which leaves you some cap space to go after the
and
other
he's
top
and he's a
six
big
forwards.
body,
He's
which
a
is
very big
something
body.
they don't have.
Yep. Does have a modified no trade clause, so he's got a 10-team no trade list. That dwindles to an 8-team no trade list on July 1st. So most of the league can now trade for him anyways. Even more of the league can trade for him after Canada Day, July 1st.
Getting pretty late in the day. Like, you wonder if the Canucks are going to have to roll the dice on a late trade like that, or a late offer sheet or something. Like, is this center thing not going to be solved by the draft or by July 1?
Oh, I think they're absolutely committed to solving it. I think they know that
Oh,
next
at
year's
some point, for
competitive.
sure.
Well, I think they know. I think they know next year's. I mean, you don't come out as Rutherford and say it's going to be really expensive to trade for a top 2 center, but it's going to be more expensive not to, without a full commitment to solving the problem this summer.
But you think it's definitely done by the draft?
Don't know. Not.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Not necessarily saying that, but you certainly hope it's done by the draft, because again, Rutherford previewed he thought this would come via trade as opposed to free agency. He even said we're going to have to do better than that when talking about the available unrestricted free agent centers. Of course, we don't know what he knows, and that might be that some of the better centers on the free agent market are just not going to consider the Vancouver Canucks. Yes. What's up with our friends?
Well,
our
Yellow Dog,
beer-drinking, beer-pouring friends.
The Play Dead IPA, the banger, and the one where you know you're going to be hunkered down for a little while, stay put, play dead, if you will, on a patio. Go get one. They're on sale for the month of May. It's your private or government liquor stores. The Play Dead IPA from Yellow Dog.
Abbotsford, the Baby Canucks, they advance to the 3rd round of the Calder Cup playoffs with a 2-0 victory in Game 4 Friday at Abbey Centre before 6,500, and the crowd looked fantastic. Max Sasson and then Linus Karlsson into an empty net with your goals. Kirill Kudryavtsev with an assist. Arturs Šilovs with another shutout in a series clincher. He shut out the Nashville Predators last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs to advance to round 2. He shut out Tucson with a 29-save effort in the last round of the Calder Cup playoffs. And now he has shut out Coachella Valley, the Seattle Kraken farm team, to advance. In fact, he's allowed just 1 goal in his last 3 games on home ice at Abbey Centre. So, we have talked about how big this playoff run is for Artie. To reestablish himself as the number 3 goaltender on the Canucks organizational depth chart. Remember, they recalled Nikita Tolopilo late in the season and got him some NHL action. And as we all know, it was a dreadful year for Artie at the NHL level. Wasn't able to give them quality backup goaltending when Thatcher Demko was hurt. Became a situation where Rick Tocchet and the coaching staff, Marco Sturm, couldn't trust him to make starts. Got only 2 victories against the lowly Chicago Blackhawks. So there was a lot at stake for him in this Calder Cup playoff run, and he is ticking the boxes. And the other thing we know about Artie is he likes a good party, and he was talking about the crowd.
Great morale support, especially first period starts and I see full crowd, towels, and you feel the energy from the crowd, and we do a couple big hits, and the crowd is cheering, you make a save, crowd is cheering, and it's builds up the momentum, and let's say we shut down the period, and it's just building and building.
How much fun is it for you? How much fun are you having out there right now?
Yeah, it's fun, it's how crucial it is, how important it is to battle for every single teammate, and they do the same thing for you, and yeah, I think just a team performance.
I've said this before, but I really hope he does make it and make it here in Vancouver. To me, he's a little bit of Eddie Lack light in terms of
a little bit.
There's a big personality there. There's a guy who you can tell likes the attention, likes to talk. A little bit of the weird factor as well. They are goalies after all.
The schedule is broken well for him to surf on the momentum of the fans because with them hosting the first 2 games, they go Friday, Sunday, which works great for the people in the Valley, I think, in terms of showing up. And Colorado, by choosing to get the 3 home games later, they've got a Wednesday game and a Monday night. Now, that would be Memorial Day Monday night, so it's still a holiday, I guess, for them. But that Wednesday, like if you can sweep your 2 home games to probably a little bit more of a muted Wednesday night crowd down in Colorado, maybe there's a chance here.
Sammy Blais had an assist on Friday. He has a share of the AHL playoff scoring lead. He did not score a goal this past round, but he had 3 against Tucson and continues to notch points. And then there's Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who has now got just the 1 assist and just the 6 shots in 4 playoff games. He's gone 9 AHL games now, regular season and playoffs, without a goal. In fact, going back to his last goals, at the AHL level, it was February 28th against Calgary. His last goal at any level, you'll remember that night against the Devils, where we were all buzzing about Jonathan Lekkerimäki, scored a goal, had the shootout winner.
Devils or CBJ?
That was March 24th.
Devils?
It was, Jeff has written Devils.
Okay, might have been Devils.
I could be mistaken.
It was that same week anyway,
Yeah. Manny Malhotra says he's not worried yet about the Canucks' top prospect who's playing for Abbey. Here's Coach.
It's playoff hockey is different. The looks are few and far between. Obviously, the shot totals go down. So nothing needs to change for him. Obviously, trying to jump into spots and then find that open ice is one thing. But he's doing a lot of other good things that will eventually generate those looks that we need.
Which is great. You want your guy to score. I mean, that's job number 1 for him. I don't think anybody's hoping that he gets drafted and wins a Selke.
No, he's not winning a Selke, and he's already been drafted.
Yes. No, I'm saying you don't draft that guy to win a Selke. You draft him to score goals, so that's what they want Manny Malhotra to do, or Manny Malhotra to get him to do. It's mildly concerning. I mean, no one's got pitchforks out, but you'd hope he'd have found. I mean, if he had 1 goal in that, you'd be mildly concerned, and he's got none. 1 flash. Come on.
Can I take issue with you,
What?
Manny Malhotra, getting him to score goals? Like, again, it's hard to coach offense in this sport, right? You either have it or you don't.
I mean, I don't watch these games from tip to tail, so
right.
I don't know the utilization, but I hope that he's being put in positions to succeed.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm glad you clarified because, of course, Manny can't shoot the puck for it.
No. Well, and
in
he
fact,
hasn't been
there's very
shooting
few
the puck.
things that Manny can tell him outside of shoot the puck.
And he hasn't
and deployment. So as Blake mentioned, the Friday and Sunday games are here in Abbotsford. It's a 7 o'clock puck drop in Game 1 Friday. It is a 6 p.m. puck drop in Game 2 Sunday. Then they go on the road for what would be Wednesday, Friday, and Monday. Thought that was a little odd.
That's Memorial Day, though, as I said. So, long weekend.
For a 3 p.m. start on that Game 5, deciding Game 5, if it is necessary, it would be 7 o'clock starts in the 2 other games in Colorado. And one more thing on Canucks prospects, because we talked about this guy with Dave Hall last week, prospect writer at Canucks Army. We've mentioned him with Cam Robinson, who will join us on the show tomorrow, keeps an eye on prospects. But we wondered about Anthony Romani, the Canucks, was it 6th round pick from a couple of years ago, who has just put up these eye-popping totals at the OHL level and came off an extraordinary playoffs where he was 24 points, 12 goals in 16 games for the Barrie Colts. And yes, it was the 6th round pick last year. All the reports now are that he is going the NCAA route, is going to join Michigan State, the Spartans, next season.
Way better idea than going back to the junior or ECHL, right?
We said, we said it with Dave last week that if you're going pro, he needs a spot on the Abbotsford Canucks, right? And the Abbotsford Canucks have a somewhat crowded roster. We'll see how it shakes out this summer. But we felt like the opportunity at the pro ranks was probably going to have to be him working his way up to Kalamazoo or playing in a less prominent role in Abbotsford. I think this is perfect for the young man. I think this is better than the OHL. This is, of course, a new procedure, right? There would have been a time when Anthony Romani was ineligible to play at Michigan State, or at least ineligible to get any kind of athletic scholarship.
He's playing against men. It's still a rung up.
And Michigan State has a couple of forwards this year that both could factor in the first round, but I suspect both will be gone by the first 50 picks. So some development has happened there with a couple of their current players.
Yeah.
Big school. Very, very big school, to say the least. So good news there, I think, for the Canucks and for young Anthony Romani. I mentioned the point totals again. He was hurt most of this year, got hurt in the World Junior Summer Development Camp. But the last time he played a full season in the OHL was 111 points, 58 goals in 68 games for North Bay before he got traded this past year. And Blake, Rob Williams was gleeful on Friday. I'm sitting there at home getting ready for the Blue Jays and Mariners game, and a buddy, a season ticket holder friend, sends me an email. He goes, "Well, there's the answer that you and Rob Williams were talking about on yesterday's show. The maroon seats are up for sale." Did I send you the viz there, Mike? If I didn't, I apologize. Damn it.
There's another viz, though.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a sec. $50 a seat. And then someone said, well, it goes to charity. Great. Donate $50 to charity. In this case, you have to take in a maroon seat into your home. Beer and tear-stained seat that you now have to take to the dump. Like to me, this is a way for them to not have to go to the dump. Donate the $50 to charity, by all means. My goodness. It's not like there was a Stanley Cup raised in there and the place is decorated in Mystique. It's got something on it. It ain't Mystique.
I'm seeing if I can send it to Mike quickly here so that we can get it up. I feel very bad that I wasn't that I did not provide this, because what I can't get over is if you take a look at if you take a look at the poster the Canucks have, I've sent it to you, Mike, on text. If you take a look at the poster that the Canucks have put together to advertise these seats, own a piece of history, big banner.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you for your support of the Vancouver Canucks. This offseason, we are undergoing an extensive project to replace the seats at Rogers Arena, which we aim to complete prior to the 25-26 NHL season. As a valued full season ticket member, we want to offer you the opportunity to take home your current seats from Rogers Arena by making a $50 per seat donation to the Canucks for Kids. And then there is a picture of this maroon seat. And yes, the back looks completely matted down, very, very thin. There is only one armrest on the seat, so very, very true to what you actually sit in at Rogers Arena. Donate today. Canucks for Kids Fund. Secure.
I guess there was a golden goal scored in front of those seats.
There was a golden goal scored. There was a Bieksa Stanchion goal scored. There was an Alex Burrows Slay the Dragon goal scored.
Yeah, I guess.
There were some big Stanley Cup final playoff goals scored there. Max Lapierre stands out.
But to no effect.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Rob was also busy reporting this morning on the demise of a quote-unquote Canucks business. Who knows what this even means, because there's probably a naming rights agreement here.
Well, they are in the restaurant business, though.
I don't know where this falls.
Canucks Bar and Grill at the U.S. terminal at YVR is no more. They have sort of kept the color scheme. They're calling it Icons, all right?
And Alfonso Davies is pictured in a bio. Do they have the right to use that?
I don't know. I would hope those I's were dotted, T's were crossed.
Yeah, exactly. But since when does something with the Canucks brand on it not work out?
Well, but it was in the U.S. terminal.
I don't remember at the U.S. terminal. Was it the U.S. terminal?
Yeah.
Oh, at the very end, right? Yeah.
Which always struck me as odd, because wouldn't you want that in the domestic terminal, where you're more likely to have your outbound, Vancouver Canucks fans?
There's more offered in the U.S. terminal. Like the domestic terminal has just got that one bar and grill, basically.
No, the domestic terminal has that slew of restaurants down the one end. Yeah.
No, but they're just little snack bar-y kind of things.
No. Go the other end. There's so far more available.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Thai place there.
There's several places.
Bar.
I think there's a New York Fries, and I think there's something else.
Yeah, but there's only one sit-down bar and grill per se.
There's the piece of history for those of you watching on YouTube, and I am admonishing myself for not having that immediately. Look at that seat, Blake.
Gorgeous. Just who wouldn't want that in their family room?
I mean, the proceeds are going to charity. For good on them.
Just donate to charity. Don't have to take back the junk. Well, of course, and they're saving the disposal fees. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This feels like we're being used.
No, but I just hope, and I doubt this is the case, because they're so accustomed to revenue and gouging at every turn, Canuck Sports Entertainment. That's the culture there. It's funny. I've had several people who I know who have worked there who have said, upon my meeting with Francesco, he said to me, all I care about was revenue. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's the pep talk for the sales guys. I don't know. But please tell me there wasn't somebody in the meeting who said, let's sell them. I suspect there probably was somebody who said, let's sell them. It could be a revenue source. But the smarter heads prevailed there. Somebody was brave enough to speak up and say, hey, guys, these seats are shit. Our customers absolutely fucking hate them and think we're the cheapest organization going because it's taken so long to replace them. If we try to sell them, we will be an absolute laughingstock. So let's just try and save the disposal fees, get whomever feels affection, sentimentality, nostalgia toward these seats to make a donation.
I would love to
That's
know.
absolutely the best. I am so pleased it worked out that way, as opposed to someone sitting there going, yes, we're going to sell them and make a lot of money.
We'll never get the answer.
What's 50 times 18? There is
They're not selling them all.
$9,000.
There's not selling them all.
I don't think so.
So what's the over-under? I say 300. You going over or under 300 seats sold?
Well, we're never going to get the total, so it's a moot point.
Yeah.
I would go under.
I'd probably go under too. Yeah.
Although, they're corporate tickets in a lot of cases, so maybe the company, writes off the donation. Anyways, they're also, this I thought was the bigger story, because I find this absolutely disgusting. They're also selling shoes worn by the players at $50.
Sorry, what?
Shoes worn by the players, in some cases just, slides to slide into.
Oh, well, like shoes. Dressing room, like
shoes. Yes. No, I know. I thought that was a little
player-worn shoes. I'm not even one of those people. Some people hate feet. I'm not one of those people, but that's still pretty gross.
It is really gross. And I don't get that, because do they not say we can't return your hat anymore from the hat tricks because of sanitary considerations?
Lice, etc.
Yeah.
But
how can you sell used shoes?
And like, let's just be real, folks. There's a lot of fungus in dressing rooms. There's a lot of it. All of them. Not because they're the Canucks. That's just what happens.
I can remember interviewing Dan Hamhuis once, and I was taking notes, and I the pen slipped out of my hand and it fell into a little garbage bin beside Dan's locker. And I went to reach in, and you said, "Oh, Matt, don't do that."
I know what happens in this room. Don't do that.
Dan is,
yeah,
as nice a guy as they come, right? Anyways, we started this by talking about wouldn't you love to have the playoffs here? Blake, look what we just spent 5 minutes talking about. You're goddamn right I'd like to talk about the playoffs here. Used shoes? Slides? Like, this is the Canucks content we're getting in May?
In the chat, Olivia, later Blake and Matt are spotted out back of Rogers loading up a U-Haul. Olivia, that is so not happening.
No, I assure you, Olivia.
That is so not happening.
Even if I could fit the chairs at my apartment, I would want no part of them.
Mel says the hats go to charity. Do they?
Well, there used to be a time you could go back to like guest services and collect your hat during a hat trick. That stopped. I want to say like 15, 20 years ago. It's been a while, and I'm not sure that was uniform building to building. But I was under the impression that if you threw your hat on the ice for a hat trick, that you could go and collect it. And then somebody advised me, oh, no, that's not the case. We can't give them back because of sanitary concerns. But again, that's a long time ago I had that conversation.
Steve in the chat says they were selling player-worn Lululemon hoodies for $200 a few months ago. That you can launder easily. You put it in the laundry. Like, a lot of shoes don't react very well to be put in the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Which Canucks are getting hat tricks these days anyway?
That's fair enough.
Fair enough. Huge factor.
All right, Stanley Cup playoffs here. Vegas, or maybe Leon Draisaitl, if you want to frame it that way, with the third latest regulation game-winning goal in Stanley Cup playoff history at 0.4 seconds. It makes the series 2-1 Edmonton. They've got Skinner going there as Pickard is unable. Winnipeg and head coach Scott Arniel are upset because of a perceived kick-in goal from Dallas. Dallas leads that series 2-1. I understand where Arniel is coming from in terms of the puck was kicked. The next thing it hit was the goaltender's stick and then went in. And by the letter of the law, that's not a goal. I understand where he's coming from. But also, the kick from Petrovic, the kick was designed to kick the puck to his own stick. And because his own stick was wrapped up, the next thing you know, the puck is fluttering there, hits the goaltender stick, and goes in. For me, that's not the spirit of the rule. So while I see Arniel's case, I do think it should have stuck as a good goal. To the extent you want players kicking at pucks at all, remember there was a time when the commissioner, we don't want to kick, it's dangerous. And he's right.
But the rules don't lend themselves to subjectivity a lot, where what you say makes sense.
That's it.
But it's not necessarily legislated like
right.
that.
No, but the spirit of the rule is they don't want the puck kicked into the goal.
Yeah.
This was by no means trying to kick the puck into the goal. It just happened that it got to the goal after hitting the goaltender's stick and deflecting in after the kick. So I agree with Arniel's assessment. I would do the same thing in his shoes, but I also don't think he has. He's got a leg to stand on, but I don't think that was ever the spirit of the rule.
It's a good couple teams. It's going to be a good series.
Honestly, you think so? Because I feel like when I'm watching Vegas, Edmonton, and Toronto, Florida, I'm watching proper Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, those are the cream
when
of the crop.
I feel like
sure.
I'm watching the other series, I feel like Winnipeg is just looking. I mean, we talked about it Friday. They better find their game sooner. Okay, they won the game on Friday. I still don't feel like Winnipeg is anywhere close to being the Winnipeg we saw in the regular season. The Hellebuck isn't the guy that he needs to be for them. I almost feel like Winnipeg is on borrowed time here, that they're finding a way with duct tape and other means to, keep things together a little bit, but they're primed to be beat here. And then Florida and Washington is just not compelling hockey.
It's just not compelling. I think Dallas-Winnipeg is a bit more of a chess match for sure.
I hope so. I hope Winnipeg gets game 4 and we're at least going 6 in that series.
But they're teams that can win. I could see them winning. The other two are just great.
If Winnipeg's going to win, that Do you remember that first period where they just absolutely blew out the Canucks with Connor with the hat trick in the first period? And we sat there and watched them and went, holy cow, what a team.
Yeah.
We need to see more of that, Winnipeg.
Yeah, but they're capable of it.
Are they? Because
yeah.
I haven't seen anything yet out of Winnipeg that makes me think that game, that team is on the horizon. I hope I'm wrong here.
Big one tomorrow.
Yeah, very big. And then Max Domi with just
And just to
I
find
mean, the acorn didn't fall far from the tree. Now, did it? His father with one of the stupidest acts I have ever seen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You remember the drive-by elbow on Scott Niedermayer in that playoff series against the Devils all those years ago. He got suspended. The Leafs lost that series justifiably. And then all hell broke out with Ty Domi and the Devils' tough guy, Jimmy McKenzie, the next time they met in the regular season. That was just classless and stupid, and so was the hit from Max Domi on Alexander Barkov. He gets away with just a fine.
This is a former 72.28 goal guy.
No, I know. And it's almost like he's out there trying to be his dad.
Yeah. Now
his
he's,
dad is sitting there all stone-faced, too cool to cheer. I guess cheering is too tough. It's not tough enough for Ty Domi. He's sitting there stone-faced as his kid scores a huge goal in, game 1 or game 2. And you saw his dad watch the game yesterday with Wayne Gretzky, Dustin Johnson, and Paulina Gretzky. Dustin was in a Florida Panthers jersey, but Ty is sitting there with them. Why? Remember this about Ty Domi. He is the biggest social climber I have ever come across. Mm-hmm. He prided himself in being close friends with the top of the heap of NHL superstars, that whether it was in his own room with guys like Matt Sundin, or whether it was the Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky crowd. Then there was the whole Belinda Stronach dalliance. Don't get me started there. We had someone who could have been prime minister holding hands with Ty Domi as she walks down Queen West. It's like the whole hockey world was going, oh, Belinda, where are you going here? You got all that money. You got all that power and prestige. Why are you slumming it with that guy? I've also had more than one person tell me categorically the worst teammate they ever had, Ty Domi.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Domi rant over.
He's such a phony. Time now for our menu, brought to you by Greta. Fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away, pregame, postgame. You were steps from the arena and stadium. They have the awesome street food menu. Try the smash burger. It's my absolute favorite. The tacos are to die for as well. And the arcade. It's massive. It encircles the bar. Old school games, new school games, pop a shot. You'll love it. Weekly drink specials, 50 West Cordova. Greta, let the games begin. John Shannon's going to join us, and then JPat. And then we'll talk about that Blue Jay sweep of the Mariners, and the Whitecaps continue their unbeaten ways. It took a while. This wasn't an easy one.
They put themselves in a hole.
But they got a quote-unquote result in the world of footy. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. The segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. I was sort of 50-50 on the weekend, so go ahead and take the tee here.
I have never been more confident about a guy's ability to avenge himself than Leon Draisaitl's tonight.
Wow. Good call.
It's a bad number. It's only plus 120 for an anytime goal scorer.
Yeah.
But if I've ever been more sure of something...
What's the 2-point night?
2-point night. Plus it's plus 115.
Oh, really? What?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Not accustomed to betting these high scores. We cover the Canucks here.
But Leon's going to avenge himself. It's going to happen. Extract the tax, plus 120.
The Washington Capitals are the Rodney Dangerfield here of the second round. Bettors giving them no respect. That's reflected in the money line. It's a 2-1 series. Carolina's at home, but the way this thing is going, give me the Capitals at plus 230. Like, you're getting double the value on the Capitals to just win the game.
I got them as a home dog
versus
last
Leon
week.
Draisaitl at 2 points. Like, how does
No one believes in the Caps.
Washington plus 230 because the value is so high and no other reason, and it may not be enough to get me to watch this game. Anyways, want to get in on the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you from game props, player props, totals, money lines. You can bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, even the Stanley Cup champion, plus whole lots more, whatever your bet. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older.
Neither one of us went plus 1550 on France to beat Canada tomorrow. We're going to stay away from that one. Plus 1550.
This is hockey.
Yeah, Worlds.
Okay.
Plus 1550. I don't think I've seen that in hockey in a while.
What is Canada minus?
4,000.
John,
You're not making money on that.
no, John Shannon coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. This next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2025 season. Had their big opening weekend this past weekend. Tee times can be booked anytime online for the entirety of the 2025 season. Lock them in, and if you have a group of 12 or more, ask about our Harrison Price midweek specials at the Whistler Golf Club. whistlergolf.com/groups. Follow on social media at Whistler Golf. As we welcome in the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, his podcast, 100% Hockey with Darren Millard, typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The most famous man from Oliver, British Columbia, John Shannon. How are you?
Happy Monday, boys. Hope you spent Mother's Day doing the appropriate things.
I got a reprieve this year. She was traveling, so we will spoil her when she comes back.
I just for the record, at my house, I walked into my wife's and I said, "Happy Mother's Day," and she said, "I'm not your mother."
So
I was off the hook too.
No, good.
There you go.
Last week you told us you thought it was maybe the best weekend ever for the Stanley Cup playoffs in the first round with those two terrific Game 7s, and then this weekend we get a buzzer beater, John.
Well, can
Not your traditional buzzer beater, but a buzzer beater nonetheless.
Just for the record, I'm trying to talk to the contacts in Las Vegas because I want to build T-shirts that they .4 on them because I think that would sell. I think that would be a big seller for at least a couple of weeks. And
if they win the series, even more so.
Yeah, they got to win the series.
Put a little money in our pockets, boys. Come on now.
Yeah. Before we get on to more Stanley Cup playoffs, I want to talk to you here on the Canucks side of things. You were saying to us when you came on, all quiet on the Western Front here.
Very, very quiet. Obviously, teams are now prepping for the draft and having some of their scouting meetings. But at the same time, that's not the real issue right now in Vancouver. It's who's going to be the next coach. And there are names out there, but at the same time, you do have to wonder if they're waiting for somebody that's on a staff, or they're still waiting for some other ducks to fall around the league. So it's gone beyond the discussions of Mike Vellucci for sure, and Mike Vellucci and Manny Malhotra. And we'll have to see what happens.
Well, ask you a variation of the poll question. Like, is there an amount of winning that Malhotra can do here in the playoffs that gets him the job? Like at this point, if he gets to one more round, is it just a fait accompli, or is his success this season sort of already cemented and it's considered and it's not going to change?
I think that they're looking at long range, so short-term success like the Abbotsford team is having now really doesn't come into play unless there's something that happens in a series that that the powers that be are watching the game and look and see what he does in a certain scenario and say, wow, that's a guy we have. I have talked to a couple of former teammates of Manny's in the last week or so, and they can't say enough about him.
Mm-hmm.
They can't say enough how prepared he is, how focused he is, but that does not help you in the column of NHL head coach experience. And so that's the one thing that becomes a factor. If they're adamant that the coach has to have NHL head coaching experience, then Manny can't be on the list.
Right, because if you're looking at AHL playoff success, Todd Nelson's the guy.
Yeah,
with all of his success.
Well,
I've known Todd a long time, I heard you guys talk about Todd last week, actually. And I wonder if Todd's time has passed.
Yeah,
and has he become a lifetime American League coach, a lifetime development coach? That's not a knock at Todd, but I do wonder if that's the case.
Yeah, the John Anderson name comes to mind there, right? Legendary AHL coach, had great success. In fact, had Nelson as an assistant when they won an AHL championship way back when with the Chicago Wolves. Adored figure. Everybody loved him, particularly young players, and that's kind of why he got pigeonholed into that AHL head coaching job.
Well, and I'm not sure, and I say this out of maybe too much honesty. I'm not sure you want to be put in the same column as John Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
John Anderson could not cope at the National Hockey League level. He couldn't. And so a life in the American League, a life in minor pro hockey was where John should have stayed and didn't. And when he did get the job in Atlanta, remember we had a team in Atlanta once?
Yeah.
And maybe again. But
it's on my list here to discuss.
So the practical side of it is that, if Todd is in the John Anderson realm, then I don't think he's going to get much of a chance to coach in this league.
Help me out on Manny on this side of things. Somebody mentioned to me he might be exactly the profile of coach that the Pittsburgh Penguins are looking for. Someone who can step in, instantly have the respect of Sidney Crosby and Malkin because of his history, and he's just a revered figure amongst players, but also, work with the young players. And then somebody else told me they didn't think Manny and Dubas were particularly close because Manny bounced around a little bit in the Leafs organization when he was there. What do you know there?
I had not considered that, although what I will say is that, Kyle has a plan, and certain people fit into the plan. Like Jason Spezza has fit into his plan as an assistant general manager, and I'm sure at some point will be named the general manager when Kyle moves to just become the president. I'm not saying that's imminent; that's years away. But I do think that Kyle would identify and represent what a guy like Manny could bring, and that's when you say that, Matt. That's one of the challenges the Canucks have is that there are other people watching American League hockey too, and you don't want to lose somebody in your organization, the talent of Manny Malhotra, to some other club, and so the moment that occurs, then all of a sudden Manny has leverage. So I'm not suggesting he does right now, but when you think about it, other teams are looking for coaches as well, or looking for people to help out. And I know Manny likes living in the Lower Mainland. He likes his lifestyle, but his goal is to be a head coach in the National Hockey League, and there's only one in that area. So from that perspective, you have to watch it.
Dennis Bernstein in LA reporting that DJ Smith has interviewed with several teams. I don't know if the Canucks are on that list. Does that surprise you? This is a guy, we've talked about second chancers a lot. This guy had a long runway in Ottawa and just lost a lot of games. Are you surprised that DJ Smith is getting a look?
No, but I actually would DJ Smith in Pittsburgh before I'd put Manny Malhotra, because Kyle Dubas and DJ Smith do have a relationship as well from DJ's time in Toronto when Kyle was here, and DJ is interesting because it was DJ's team that beat out Kyle's junior team too. Oshawa beat Sault Ste. Marie in the year that Oshawa won the Memorial Cup. So there is a relationship between DJ and Kyle that would seem to fit, I think, better than most.
And poor DJ, he'd be taking over a team that's sort of in no man's land, much like that Ottawa team he had as well. I don't know that he's going to improve his career winning percentage if he takes that Pittsburgh team.
But he, as I've said to other places, 32, it's an exclusive club.
No,
and when you get
yourself, absolutely.
When you get a chance to coach in the National Hockey League, you coach in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
If Rick Tocchet is named the head coach of the Seattle Kraken this week, would that surprise you, John?
Yes, it would.
There's some smoke they've already offered him the job.
Well, maybe they have. I just, his son doesn't live in Seattle anymore. The whole concept of going home to family, being closer, doesn't seem to make much sense then, and you have to take a man at his word that he wanted to be closer to family. And last I checked, Seattle's not closer to family.
Yeah, apparently that was more Rutherford than Tocchet.
Oh, well, Rick's in the quotes. It's Rick's quote. So,
yeah. Something may have changed there, John. If he is named the head coach of the Kraken, do Canucks fans have a license to be upset?
Absolutely. I think they do. That would bother me as a Canuck fan if Rick Tocchet takes the job in Seattle. To me, that's got a little bit of an odor to it.
Doesn't look good on the franchise, does it?
On Vancouver?
Yeah. He's the one that's like, I'm just done with you. I'm walking away.
Yeah, well, but I don't know what to say. Like, I mean, it's one of those ones where if a guy's not happy, because not every franchise, not every team is a perfect match. Not everyone is a perfect match. If a guy's not happy and he can afford to take the risk of being without a contract for 6 weeks, then take it. Rick knew that he was going to be a hot commodity this summer, and he got to pick and choose. And we certainly know the Canucks situation is not perfect, but I don't think it's a condemnation completely of what's going on with one. And we've talked about this in a great hockey town. If you want to win, and you want a following, and you want to coach in a hockey hotbed, do you want to coach in Vancouver? Or do you want to coach in Seattle? Seriously, Vancouver is. I mean, you are on such a pedestal in Vancouver. There has to be some level of attractiveness to it.
Well, and traditionally, John, as you know, like these hockey men don't like to admit defeat. They like to think that they can turn something around, that they can be a part of a solution.
Yeah.
And it sort of feels like, especially if he takes the Kraken job, it sort of feels like he was like, yeah, I can't do it there. And I don't see a future there. And I don't think I can turn this around and fix it.
But that's, to me, in my mind, with Rick making that decision. And by the way, the Canucks gave him the right to make that decision.
Yeah.
I would say, you don't want people in your organization not happy. You don't.
No, for sure.
So you want, if he says, well, I'm not sure, I'm waffling, I'd really like to look at other options. I'm not sure you want him in your organization in the first place.
Yeah, it should, and you're 100% correct. That's just often not what we see in this business, in the sports business,
you're
right?
You're right. I mean, again, that goes back to the exclusivity of being one of 32. And people think, well, I'm never going to get another chance. Rick knew he was going to get another chance.
And that's the biggest thing, yeah.
Rick knew the market and knows the market. And I think there are still other vacancies that Rick would be considering. When you think about, in my mind, Boston and obviously Philadelphia, but Boston to me is the one that looks pretty good to me.
John, the man's name is Vernon Krause, and he's the guy behind the Arena project in Forsyth County, Georgia, suburban Atlanta. He did an interview on Friday with local television and said his group is in the home stretch to present a completed package to Gary Bettman and the NHL board or whomever when the playoffs are over, while also acknowledging he is one of several groups that is pursuing the NHL's return to Atlanta for a third time. Of course, the commissioner tamped it down because that's what Gary does with expansion. But you tell me, how real is expansion to Atlanta? How real is Vernon Krause and his group with the Suburban Arena project to get a team?
Well, Vernon Krause is the real deal. He is very rich. I think, let me put it to you this way. Vernon Krause, when the tariffs came in for the cars and then President Trump signed a deal with the UK, Mr. Krause's Rolls-Royce franchise did okay. So we're talking a guy that's got deep, deep pockets. Now, what he's developing in Forsyth County, which is the county north of Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, so it's in the suburbs, is a bigger development than just a hockey arena. It is residential, it is corporate, it is commercial. The county is completely on board. The next phase for Mr. Krause and his group is to go and present to Gary their plan. Gary and Bill, not to the board yet. They're a long way from going to the board. And we're still talking about 2029 or 2030 for a team to exist, I think, in Atlanta, if it happens. But it's incumbent on a classic case of if you build it, they will come, or they will come if you build it. So the concept of this development in Forsyth County will only occur with an arena if he knows that Gary and Bill and then eventually the board agree to give them a franchise. So he's building the development. The development is on its way. It's whether it has an arena or not is the key. And that's where they have to go and get permission or some sort of wink or a nod from the commissioner to say, yeah, that makes a ton of sense for us.
At which time they become the largest North American sports league. And I don't know that that's a title that you necessarily want. Like, where are we going here? Are we going to 47 teams here eventually? Like, this is the smallest economy of the major sports almost, and
it's the most regional.
And yet they just keep growing, John. Is it healthy?
Well, but so let's do the math. How many franchises in the United States in Major League Baseball?
30, right?
29, because the Jays are in Canada. 29.
Oh, okay, yes.
Obviously, there's 32 NFL teams.
Yeah.
How many NBA teams are there in the United States?
31?
No.
29. Is it 20?
They're a 30 team league. They're going to go to Vegas and Seattle to get to 32. How many NHL teams are in the United States?
25.
25. That's the matrix.
Right.
That's what the thought process is. In order
to 30
to
American teams.
Get to 29 at least American teams. 29 American teams will get you to 36.
Yeah.
And it's simple. Be in every top 10 market. Hockey's not in every top 10 U.S. market. They're missing three.
Atlanta,
they're missing
Houston.
3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Who is that? Atlanta, Houston, and who else?
Where do you think? Phoenix.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So that's the math about it. Now we had Gary on 100%, and I asked him. I said, "Do you have to get to 29 American teams?" And he didn't say no, but he also didn't say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go and sell to major corporations national packages of advertising and commercial endorsements if you're not comparing apples to apples. Right. And so if you're in that many less markets, and we're talking about big markets like Houston,
yeah, huge.
Houston, Atlanta, for sure, huge. And those, to me, those are the first two cities.
But John, here's what I would say to the commissioner and the plan. Do they want hockey? Atlanta has rejected NHL hockey twice.
Well, the only thing, and I've asked this question of people involved in the Atlanta situation, and the answer is the personality and the demography of what Atlanta has changed so drastically in the last 10 years. And the amount of people that have moved to Atlanta and the amount of people that have moved to the Atlanta suburbs. It's one of the reasons why the Braves were not a successful financial franchise downtown. Have you seen what the Braves done in the suburbs?
They've done very well going to the suburbs, and it was terrifying leaving that old rink, the Phillips Center downtown Atlanta, right, John, after games because no one was there.
It wasn't even fun to get to.
No, it was horrible. Centennial Olympic Park is as scared as I have ever been in a major U.S. downtown, and that is saying something. That you can make a memorial park to your Olympics, and it could be that dangerous.
You move to where the people are. You move to where the money is, you can be successful. And
Houston is number
4.
Yeah, I've got to miss 5, but
it's a huge market.
9 and 10 for Atlanta and Phoenix, respectively. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, you don't need a big piece of that pie to equate having a much larger piece of the pie in Pittsburgh. You know,
right? So now you're on our side. Now you believe in expansion, Blake. That's good.
Well, I understand the theory, but the execution and the reality might be different. That's the only thing, right? There's a lot of great things that are great in theory that don't execute well.
So here's the other question. You two entrepreneurs, how much?
Well, that's the big question.
That's why they
love those expansion revenues. One would say they're addicted to those expansion revenues after.
How about 1.5 billion?
I was going to say more than $1 billion, right? Yep, absolutely. Yep. Okay, sir, you have a marvelous week. And have you golfed yet?
No. Today's the first day.
It's May 12th.
Today's the first day it's actually going to be pleasant overnight.
I mean, I sure hope you get around to golfing before the middle of May.
It was pretty nice this weekend. I was there this weekend. It was pretty nice.
You weren't part of the protest outside the stadium, Blake?
I was not. No.
I was teasing him about that. You know, they were there for his glorious arrival. Wait a second. A Vancouver guy is calling our game. Let's protest and walk out.
Oh, no, Blake. It's the great thing about Blake can say he was Toronto for at least a couple.
That's right. Okay. That's right.
And by the way, there's nothing worse than a transplanted Easterner in British Columbia, Mr. Sakaris.
Look. Trying to
I mean, how many years do you have to live here to be in British Columbia? He is doxing me. How dare you? It's all right. I'll go through Oliver next week or next month when I'm visiting. I'll say, yes, the town John Shannon abandoned.
Oh, yes.
No, hey, listen, the Shannon name's all over town. It's all over town.
In spray paint, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. JS was here.
That's right.
See you, John.
Bye, John.
Cheers. Bye.
It's a Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And the next time I'm on the golf course, the only way I'm doing it is with bogey juice in the bag because I've not played as much golf as you this year. And I know the bogeys will be lurking, and I need to make sure I have some fun out there. So the individual size bogey juice bottles, perfect for that occasion. It's also just a tasty treat. Ginger, apple, top shelf vodka with some soda over ice. Get a big bottle. Always have it on hand for the spring and summer treat. Bogeyjuice.com to get yours. Use the code SP15. You'll get 15% off. And check out the swag, too, because that's conversation starter stuff right there in the merchandise.
Can I just thinking aloud here?
Yeah.
Here in my mouth.
Sure.
Because you got a bit of a shoulder ailment.
Yeah.
Could it sort of also work as a bit of a painkiller? Pain subsider? Huh?
I'm not a doctor.
Get your bogey juice. Here's Chef Paterson, who doesn't make bogeys.
No, he doesn't. No, he's allergic to bogeys.
He's more a birdie juice guy anyways.
But like me, doesn't play a lot of golf, which is annoying when he plays well.
Not yet. He's going to get – he's not much of a mutter.
yeah, I feel like the season hasn't really started yet. So
Every year I ask him in January, Jeff, on some of these nice weekends we're going to play. No, thank you.
Well, this
Golf
has been a
season
spring,
doesn't-
though. This has
and then
been
by
spring.
March, you can tell that Jeff really wants to play. So, quite a game you covered on Friday night. Boy, these Abbotsford Canucks look really good in closeout games, don't they, Jeff?
yeah, they seem to have that down. A couple of shutouts to advance, although they did have a chance to close out Tucson in the previous round and missed their first crack at it. So they're getting better at it as they go here. But they were really good on Friday night and pretty darn good throughout the series against Coachella Valley. And so they're going somewhere that they've never gone as an organization, at least not based in Abbotsford. And that's to the third round, a chance to win the Pacific Division. And I guess I'm struck just by what a team effort it is. 12 different guys have scored in the playoffs to this point. Sammy Blais leads in points, but it's not like he's got this ghastly total. He's doing his part and everybody's following, and they locked it down nicely. Arturs Šilovs was solid. He hasn't been spectacular at any point in the playoffs, but he's been really solid and made the saves that he's supposed to. And I was impressed defensively with the way that they just didn't give up much in a game where Coachella Valley had everything to play for, and obviously their season is now done. So yeah, good on Abby. They're on to round 3.
Jeff, we've been told that Manny plays the same system as Rick Tocchet did with the Vancouver Canucks. So, when you say they lock it down, is this a suffocating team defense where they just don't give up a lot of high danger chances and err on the defensive side of the puck? Do you see that as invisible? Can you watch the Abbey Canucks and say, yes, I'm watching Rick Tocchet hockey just at the AHL level?
There are similarities, certainly. They don't have Quinn Hughes out in Abbotsford, so that sort of changes the look and feel, obviously, between the two teams. But it is wild, guys, to see players like Guillaume Brisebois, who, has given it the old college try throughout his career, has made it to the National Hockey League. But I don't know if there's a National Hockey League game left in Guillaume Brisebois. But at the American Hockey League level, he is bordering on dominant in a lot of these games. And remember that Abbotsford's without Christian Wolanin, who would play a ton of minutes in a lot of situations, and now Jet Wu missed the last handful of games as well. So they really leaned on the healthy defensemen that they had. And I don't have ice times, but I would imagine that Guillaume Brisebois logged a ton in what was a 1-0 game until they sealed the deal into an empty net. And so, Coachella Valley was one shot away, and you just can't make the mistakes. He doesn't. He plays just a solid, positionally sound. He's not spectacular, but he's not trying to be, and he doesn't have to be. But I thought he and Akito Hiroshi, you see the veteran presence in both of those guys at that level. And Brisebois, he kills penalties. He's out there late in games with a 1-goal lead, just effectively doing his job. And so, it was interesting to hear Manny after the game talk about how they leaned on their structure. And I know Rick Tocchet, obviously, that was one of his buzzwords. So maybe there are some similarities in that regard. I didn't think Coachella Valley dominated, but as you can imagine, they're down a goal. They're pushing in the third period. There were times where they had those shifts territorially, but Abbotsford seemed to be in the right position, that anytime Abbotsford or anytime Coachella Valley looked like maybe it was going to be able to generate a quality look, an Abbotsford guy was there in a shooting lane or a stick was getting in the way. They just look like they are doing what Manny Malhotra is asking them to do right now, and it's hard to argue with the results as they advance to the next round here.
The change in level thing is so funny. I remember watching Eric Brandstormer in the early part of the year, and he looked like Quinn Hughes in the AHL. It's incredible. So it's funny how that happens. Your comment on Šilovs is encouraging because I feel like in the playoffs in the NHL last year, it was a little bit more of the spectacular save and less of the boring goaltending. To me, that's encouraging that he's making the saves that he's supposed to, because that's almost what was missing from his game at the NHL level.
Yeah, and I think some of that comes back to the way the guys were playing in front of him, that, he's not being asked to make 2 and 3 and 4 saves in succession here, that they're mopping up in front and a lot of one and dones, but he's doing his part with the one shot that does get through. But he made 29 saves. It wasn't like Coachella Valley didn't have shots on goal, 11 in the third period as they were pushing for the equalizer there. His best save of the game on Friday and of the playoffs so far came off a guy by the name of Ian McKinnon, and you may have seen the highlight where they dumped the puck in. Coachella Valley was able to get to the forecheck. Guy swings in behind the net and a quick pass out in front. McKinnon all alone And Arturs Šilovs was able to make himself big and, again, was in the right spot there to make what was a game saver, ultimately, because it was a glorious opportunity and the Firebirds couldn't convert there. So, he sounds like he's having fun with it. Crowd was getting into it, chanting his name, and he seems to be feeding off some of that. And as we've talked about, there is something about these spring times for Arturs Šilovs, whether it was the Worlds or last year the NHL, and now it looks like he is getting on a bit of a run here. And credit to him, like he got the hook in Game 3 of the series, Game 2, I suppose. It was Game 2, got the hook, and Manny came back to him, and he has responded, and he gave 1 goal in the 2 games since he was returned to the Abbotsford net. So if you're getting that kind of goaltending at this time of the year, you stand a pretty good chance of having some success. That said, the deeper you get in the playoffs, the more the challenges level up. And next up is a Colorado team that led the American Hockey League in goals scored through the American Hockey League season. So that's going to be one of the big challenges, obviously, is trying to slow down this Colorado team that finished 2 points in front of the Abbotsford Canucks in the regular season standings.
And Latvia could have used him versus Canada.
Yes, for sure. You could ask him about the kids. All your fretting about the kids last week. Kids were pretty good.
Well, read between the lines on Malhotra's comment on Lekkerimäki there with just the 1 point.
Yeah, and just 1 shot on goal. He was really quiet the other night. And I don't want to say disappointing, but he does leave you wanting more. I guess if there's a concern here, it's that this isn't just 1 or 2 games now, interrupted by dental surgery that apparently didn't quite go right, but hasn't scored in the playoffs. But even before that, you go back, hasn't scored for a while now in the American Hockey League and didn't score a lot in his last call-up at the National Hockey League level. And this is a goal scorer. And I was looking back through his statistics. The last time he scored in the American Hockey League, he had 7 shots on goal in that game. Like, that's a volume shooter. That's when he is at his best. And so through the 4 games that he's played here in the playoffs, he has just 6 shots on goal. There are other guys that are doing more right now, and he's out there on the power play, but he doesn't feature on the power play. But yeah, small C concern. Just you want more from him, and so you get to hit the reset button as you move into another round here. So a new batch of games and another opportunity for him to step up. But Manny was trying to sort of prop him up a little bit, said he's doing things away from the puck and some of the right reads defensively, and that's great. That's great. But ultimately, this guy's calling card is putting pucks in the net, and he hasn't done it for a while at any level. Would just like to see him shooting the puck more than he has through the first handful of games here in the postseason.
Yeah, if they have to move one of their top prospects, perhaps in conjunction with that 15th overall pick to land their top 2 center, Jeff, is it cut and dry for you? Is it Lekkerimäki more so than Wieland, or vice versa? Do you have a strong feeling on which of the top 2 prospects need to go if they're
or you're willing to go
if they're required to land that top 2 center that Rutherford talked about being so expensive?
Well, I would flip the question on you and suggest, what would the other acquiring team want? And right now, they would see the same things that I'm seeing, that others are seeing with Jonathan Lekkerimäki. That, he boasts a resume of being a goal scorer at just about every level he's played, but chips are down here. This is playoff hockey, and you want to see him rise above. And so I think there'd be a little bit of caution on an acquiring team if that was the guy. Now, again, he's 20 years old. He's got his career in front of him. So I don't know that it would necessarily scare teams away. I would say that the right shot defenseman would be the more coveted asset and might have more market value just based solely on that. So
but if you're pilfering a forward, maybe they want a forward back, right? Who knows?
Yeah. No, again, it comes down to what the other team's looking for. I'm just saying that these games are heavily scouted, and as teams are sort of trying to get the book on Jonathan Lekkerimäki, he's gone a little cold at the wrong time of the season. Again, I don't think that diminishes him in the big picture as a prospect, but when the chips are down here, this isn't a guy that has risen above yet. So you hope that there's more to come here in this playoff run, and obviously as a springboard. It just comes back to this question, and I'm getting a lot, and you guys probably seeing it as well in your socials too, about who's the best prospect, who's most likely to make the jump to the National Hockey League. Just based on what I've seen through 2 rounds of the playoffs here so far, this playoff run is on the back of Sammy Blais and Phil Giuseppe now up to 6 points in 8 games. Jujhar Khaira. We talked about Guillaume Brisebois, Nikita Hirose. The legitimate prospects for the National Hockey League in Abbotsford have not stood out. I don't think there's room for Arturs Šilovs in the crease at the NHL level next year. I mean, unless there's injury, and with Thatcher Demko, that's certainly a possibility, I suppose. But in terms of breaking camp with the Vancouver Canucks, Ratu's injured right now. Lekkerimäki's been quiet. The best of the bunch has probably been Kirill Kudryavtsev, who as a raw rookie is stepping up, had an assist on the game winner the other night on the power play, doesn't look out of place at all. But is Kirill Kudryavtsev breaking camp with the Vancouver Canucks and making their NHL roster next season? No, I don't think so. So it is difficult to pinpoint one guy. If there is one, I suppose Max Sasson has probably been the best of the bunch, but he's getting to that age now where are we considering him a legitimate prospect, or is he just kind of entering that sort of journeyman stage of his career where there's still runway for him, obviously. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not writing him off here. His speed is exceptional at the American Hockey League level. We've seen it at the NHL level, but this is my one point, and I've said it a few times with you guys now, is you just love that this playoff run down on the farm was on the backs of all these guys that were banging on the door, pushing to break through for an NHL job next season, and that hasn't necessarily been the case, but the way this Abbotsford team is built, it's built to have playoff success. You need those veteran guys that have been through the battles over the years. They've got a bunch of them, and those guys certainly are stepping up in the here and now.
We should mention it's Friday at home to the Colorado Eagles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Friday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And so another best of 5 as we all keep track of the intricacies of the American Hockey League playoffs. So, yeah, it's Colorado finished 2 points. It's funny, Abbotsford had more wins, but Colorado had 2 more points in the standings, and therefore they are the higher seed, and they have elected to start in Abbotsford and then move the series to Loveland, Colorado. The other thing, guys, is by winning the division, the regular season division, this Colorado team got a bye in the first round, took care of San Jose in the second round in 4 games. They have played 4 hockey games since April the 19th. Like, it's weird. Like, that's your advantage is you get this bye, but the flip side there is you're not playing much hockey for the better part of a month with all the gaps in the scheduling and the layoffs between series here. So
it's like the Memorial Cup host, that gets bounced in the playoffs, but they've got to stay sharp somehow. But if they hold serve, like they're in the driver's seat, right? Abbey Canucks have to use home ice, and then they only need to take one of the final 3.
Yeah, and Colorado, guys, the best team in the American Hockey League on home ice. Their outrageous record at home. It's like 26-8 or something, whatever it adds up to the amount of. But they were the best team and had the most points on home ice. But they were also completely average on the road. And in fact, in the first round, split their 2 games in San Jose. And San Jose upset Ontario, was one of the lowest seeds in the entire American Hockey League playoffs. So, no, there's a real chance here for Abbotsford to grab this thing by the throat. Now, by virtue of the format, they will have to win at least 1 in Colorado. But yeah, I mean, if they can continue this run here, and we've talked about the fact that in the last 3 home games, Arturs Šilovs has given up 1 goal. He's got 2 shutouts and given up 1 goal. So they're dialed in defensively. They're going to get challenged. This is a very good Colorado team. But yeah, in another shortish series, boy, if they get a 2-0 lead, absolutely, you'd sign up for that all day and take your chances of getting 1 down in Colorado.
Okay, Jeff, good. I'm just looking at the roster right now. Itty bitty Matthew Phillips is there. How about that? Mm-hmm. Okay, marvelous stuff. Thank you for this. You're going to be in with me later this week, so looking forward to that, my friend.
All right, sounds good, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where you extend your game night with a staycation in downtown Vancouver. Book a exclusive Harrison Price rate right here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Tell them we sent you some blackout date supply based on availability. Well, it was a really big weekend for Canada's team in Seattle. Even if the crowds weren't quite as big as they normally are.
Making people wish they were there at the very least.
I sat there with all sorts of FOMO. I watched all 9 innings, all 3 days.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah. And there's a pit in my stomach when I'm watching these from home and I'm not there, especially when the crowd pants, all the Blue Jays fans behind the third base dugout. Anyways, if you were a Blue Jays fan and went down, you were rewarded. And if you were a Blue Jays fan who watched from home, you were also rewarded. That may be the best stretch of baseball the Jays have played all season. They even their record at 20-20, 500, heading home for a 12-game home stand, beating a first-place team, too, and resoundingly.
Multi-run victories abound.
There were quality at-bats. There was good starting pitching. There was excellent relief pitching. There was great defense, particularly in the outfield. Dalton Varsho seems to love playing at T-Mobile because of Rob's a home run on Friday. Not overwhelming crowds. Like, it didn't come through on television as much as I remember it, but still very healthy crowds for the M's all 3 days there. And Bellevue, Washington's Addison Barger was the story. 6 hits, 5 RBI on the weekend for the Blue Jays. He is pretty much anchored in there at third base, with Ernie Clement moving over to second base because of the Andres Jimenez injury. And got to feel good about Bowden Francis, who found trouble but got out of it. Jimmy Garcia has been extra. That back end of the bullpen now with Hoffman, Jimmy Garcia, and Mason Fluharty out of nowhere has become a dominant late inning guy. So anyways, a very good weekend for the Blue Jays and the M's. It's got to be tough being a Mariner playing in that ballpark where you sit around and go like 3 times a year. Like, this is like a road game for us. C's, on the other hand, lost yesterday. They lost 4 of 6 in Spokane. They spoiled a great outing from Jerron Watts-Brown, who struck out 10 over 6 scoreless innings. He continues to lead the Northwest League in strikeouts. They are back home tomorrow against Everett, the Mariners Farm Club. They are 5 games back of Hillsborough for first place. They got to get to some winning here. They want to stay in the race in the first half. Remember, you do a first half pennant race there. Whoever wins it goes to the playoff series against the second half winner. Asahi night tomorrow at the Nat. Friday nooner. Saturday, Hazel May of the Blue Jays broadcast team will be in attendance meeting fans. And Sunday, a bobblehead giveaway. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. You are very partial to your Vancouver Canadians hats this year. It's like every day you've got a new Vancouver Canadians hat on.
Their merch is spectacular.
It is spectacular.
And this one fits my head. So.
We went a couple weeks ago. We brought a couple of colleagues from Toronto, including Stephen Brunt, noted author, columnist. I said, what are you looking forward to? He goes, first thing I'm going to do is going to get myself a hat. I walked up to the stadium. There he is in a hat. I'm like, you got your hat already? Right there. He hit the first outdoor merch spot available. And it's true. Like, go into the team store. There are some really cool items.
And you might meet Rob Fay, too, who's lurking back there.
I met Rob Fay in the concourse a couple weeks ago, the last homestand. It was great to reconnect with him.
Yeah, it looks good.
Love to see him at Nat Bailey Stadium. The Whitecaps fall behind 2-0 early, but rally on 2 goals from Brian White to get a 2-2 draw with LAFC before a season MLS high 22,000 at BC Place. Brian White is back tied for the MLS Golden Boot lead in goals. He and 3 others are at 8 MLS goals.
And he's missed a couple of games as well. So
right. And remember, this is just MLS goals, right? Yeah. I know he scored a lot in Champions Cup, but they don't count on this tally. Ali Ahmed, the Canadian international, was excellent coming off the bench. Yohei Takaoka redeems himself, some big saves late to preserve the draw. Pedro Vite taken off at halftime with what Jesper Sorensen described as a minor foot injury, described it as more precautionary. That is something to watch, though, because Vite, for many, has been the MLS MVP to this point of the season. They're now past the 1/3 mark of the MLS schedule. Fans were somewhat upset. I saw this on my timeline on the let them play officiating.
Yeah, early, well, all through the match, there was several borderline calls that I thought they were letting them both play. Fans were keeping the score a little bit more closely, obviously, and felt like it was in the Whitecaps' favor. They also tried to do the quick
favor.
Into their favor.
Yeah.
They also felt like there was a couple of quick restarts that the Whitecaps were trying to take advantage of LAFC, and they got blown back because the ball was rotating ever. That's always the referee's thing, is if the ball has to be completely stationary and in a reasonable vicinity of where the foul took place.
Yeah.
And if it's moving even slightly or too far away from where the foul took place, of course, you'll blow it back. And fans thought that was being called a little bit too close as well. So what could have been the great thing is, though, I mean, I was late to I for some reason had 4:30 in my mind, and I was doing Mother's Day stuff with my mom. So I tuned in at like 4:25 thinking I was 5 minutes early and realized it was late, and it was already 2-0.
It was.
And then but my first thought was, Matt, that's not the end of the world with this team. Like I did not think the game was over.
Would have been game over in previous years.
Yeah, it would have been against that LAFC team, absolutely. And I was proven correct. I didn't think that they could come back and win necessarily, but getting the 2-2 draw was on my mind immediately when I saw 2-0 at 20 minutes. So good on them, and they played their game the rest of the way from the 20-minute mark on, and they're unbeaten in 11.
Unbeaten in 11, 8 wins, 3 draws, just the 1 loss in MLS play this year. They are 5 points up in MLS West. That's because Minnesota closed some of the gap. Minnesota absolutely throttled David Beckham and Lionel Messi's Inter Miami side. So their 3 points gets them 5 back of the Caps. They were the number 1 chase team there at 7 points back before the weekend.
Are you going to talk about it?
It also, that Minnesota result produced one of the all-time great headlines, if you ask me.
Well, troll jobs, social media troll jobs.
Pink Phony Club. Miami, they were pink. And that got Bex's dander up. Huh? He didn't like that.
Show some respect. Be graceful in triumph. Something to that effect. And you know what?
The St. Paul Pioneer Press said bent out of shape back.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the one that comes from the club though is going to draw the most ire here. And it's super clever. It's super funny as us as neutrals.
Right.
I do wonder what the league thinks of that.
Stop. Just stop. It's fun. It's building off one of the biggest hit songs going on here. Honestly, I thought David Beckham, with all your worldwide fame, acclaim, and, of course, position as an owner in MLS, I think you got to let that one slide, Bex. That was not out of line. Like, that was not mean-spirited. It did not...
Well, being called phony is a tad mean-spirited.
I mean, you beat him 4-1. It was 4-1, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it was...
Yeah. Hey, again, super funny, super clever.
Yeah.
I do just wonder how many
noses
are legitimately bent out of joint here.
Honestly, I thought it was a little oversensitive on Beckham's part. As for the Caps, Matias Laborda wound up not being able to go here. He trained for the final 2 days last week. Hamstring injury. He did not participate. He joined Ryan Gauld. Of course, Daniel Rios also missed this game. And then there's the curious case of Sam Adekugbe, who was scratched with a quad injury. And Sorensen says, quote, "We don't know yet. We haven't really figured it out. It happened Saturday, so the day before the match in training. It didn't look that serious, but we have to figure it out." Yeah, a couple of injuries for the Canadian international this year that have kept him out of matches.
Yeah,
it's too bad. I mean, Tate Johnson is doing really well there at left back, the rookie from North Carolina, super draft pick.
Well, Laborda's usually on the right, where Ocampo is filled in nicely, but Ocampo
struggled.
He struggled defensively, right? So, like, against Boanga,
you put it this way,
Laborda would have been great.
I was going to say either Laborda or Adekugbe, like one of them gives you a more veteran, more defensive-oriented piece, I would say, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this from MLS PR. Jesper Sorensen is the first coach in league history to record 27 points in his first 12 MLS games. This is now officially the single best coaching debut from an MLS. This is a 30-year-old league. From a first-time MLS head coach ever through 12 games.
Remarkable.
Well done, Jesper. Well done, Whitecaps. They go on the road here for a couple now before, of course, the massive one down in Mexico City on June 1st against Cruz Azul for the CONCACAF champions.
Here's the unfortunate thing that I just realized, though. They do have a Canadian championship game on May the 20th. They're not even. You play the Canadian Championship to qualify for CONCACAF, but you're not even done that campaign.
Yeah, exactly. That's not even finished before you're on to the next qualify. Okay.
It's against Valor. It's a CPL club.
I was going to say they can dress the straight B lineup this year, I think.
Yeah. And honestly, at this point, Matt, like if they lost that and they got eliminated early, I don't think anybody's nobody's going to mourn it.
What have they won? 3 or 4 in a row? Canadian championships.
You're right.
3.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lions on the field now for main camp at Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops. They have already released 9 players, all of them American. No big surprises yet. And tomorrow, the wait is over. We get the concert announcement for the June 7th home and season opener at BC Place against Edmonton. Who will it be? Following in the footsteps of 50 Cent, LL Cool J, and One Republic.
I'm on the edge.
They're doing hear my mouth. They're doing a country themed night later in the schedule. Went to that sponsors event that the Lions hosted a couple weeks ago at Goodco on Granville. I heard Dwayne Vanneau talk about how they would like to connect with that community, that it's a very popular music form now across all demographics. I do wonder whether that was a bit of a tell. I do, or maybe we're having our country night later in the year, so let's not go country for the big concert. But if it was a big country act, I would not be surprised.
That's not a bad
I'm just
shout.
spitballing here.
And so I'm thinking of, because he's generally gone Legends. One Republic was a little out of the Legends category, but
One Republic was, and remember that was 3 years ago, so they were particularly hot.
I will go. If you're going country,
I honestly don't know.
Shania Twain.
Every year it seems there's these new country stars that I have no idea who they are.
Well, but I doubt it's a new star. I bet you it's a legend. I bet you it's a legend. That's my guess. If they're going country.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll see.
I would like to think it's a newer, hotter act if they're going country.
Yeah? Okay.
Well, because I think the idea is to get young people in there. And
Right.
I'm not sure Shania is sort of placed with the 18 to 35 as well.
Yeah.
Results of our Toyota Pacific dealers poll question: Is it time for Canucks management to start saying nice things about Elias Pettersson? This was super close over the course of the weekend. In fact, Mike and I were looking at each other going like it's 50-50 every time that we looked results here. It did not finish quite 50-50. Care to guess, yes or no? Who won?
Yes, one.
Correct. 50.3%.
Holy cats.
Drew says no. If he comes prepared to camp and performs commensurate to his contract, then by all means they should say nice things. Pumping his tires after the season he had would be disingenuous, and this fan base is smart enough to see through that. Talked about that Friday. Absolutely. Graham, the only reason to do it is to boost his trade value, which nobody will believe anyway at this point. New coach coming, hopefully one who doesn't try to, quote, reprogram the brains of a skilled forward who doesn't play the style he did and downplay injuries. Maybe then keeping him works. Diane says, a longtime listener and contributor Diane here says, the question is, why is management taking this approach to heap all the blame on EP40 while absolving GT Miller of its responsibility in a toxic situation? What do Rutherford and Alvin hope to achieve with this tactic? The Canucks are allowing P to carry the blame for what happened last season. They need to start healing that wound because TBT, there's a lot of blame to go around, and without some fix, next season will be lost to a toxic, festering repeat. And she said management needs to take the lead. And then there's Vet, who says, I'll wait for the fitness testing.
I don't think it's not even that kind of ready necessarily. For VO2 tests and stuff like that, I think he probably does okay on those. I think it's strength and a few other things.
Lastly, errors and omissions from Friday's program and beyond. I have the one note. Jeff corrected you it is still one more round of best of 5 AHL playoffs. Blake was itching for the best of 7, but it's still one more round.
5 rounds of the playoffs in the AHL.
Yeah.
They've gone usually like
you don't get to best of 7 until you get to the final.
Think of the Vancouver Canadians. Like they realized we're minor league baseball.
They play a 3-game series.
Just keep the playoffs short and simple in the minor leagues. AHL's like, no, we're going 5 rounds.
Yeah.
More. Not more games per se, but.
Wait a second. It could be 5 with the Canadians. At one point, it was 3, as I recall.
Well, it's just a championship series now, right? So I think it is still 3.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing from the inbox?
No. All quiet on the front.
Thanks, everybody, for joining and connecting with the program. Very much appreciated. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us telling you about. It's now a 5-game Northwest.
Oh, there you go.
And keep it local.